Who is with me today? Well, let me see. Again, the California electric vehicle mandate. I'm with John Eppstein, John's Automotive, San Diego, California. Wow, you can't get any more south and left than where John lives.
I don't know if that's the right conversation today.
No. I didn't necessarily have anything to do with politics. I'm just saying from where I see it, it's way over there.
Yes, absolutely.
President of ASECA, the Automotive Service Councils of California. In fact, the entire team here is very, very involved in the great association, ASECA. Carolyn Coquillette's with us, the CEO of Luscious Garage and the CEO of Shopware. By the way, one of our great sponsors here on the Town Hall Academy. San Francisco, California, and Secretary of ASECA. Hello, Carolyn.
Thanks for having me, Carm. It's great to be here and great to be with the rest of the awesome folks running ASECA.
Yeah, this great gang. Dave Kusa is here, Auto Trend Diagnostics, Campbell, California, past president and board member of ASECA. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Carm. Hello, everybody.
If you like everything Dave does, just a couple of weeks ago, Dave and I did a really cool episode called 20 Questions in 30 Minutes. You'll find a whole bunch of really neat things out about Dave if you listen to that one. And John and Rory Balmer is with us, Twin Peaks Auto Service in the mountains of California, vice president of ASECA.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Hey, welcome, Rory. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
When I heard about that EV mandate, everyone, I thought of you guys, and I just really wanted to just say that the podcast did a dialogue about EVs, and I've got to look around. I've got some stuff here. The United Kingdom just announced a ban. This was this spring on internal combustion engines as of 2035. They were going to do it in 2040. France has a ban slated for 2040, but Paris is blocking ICE cars by 2030. The U.S. has about 2.1% of our sales full battery electric vehicles in 2019. Of course, California way outperforms that. I think you guys may be in the either 4 or 8%. I don't know the exact stat, but the fact of the matter is, I think Tesla is one of the biggest markets out in California. Am I right?
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. By the way, are you fixing Teslas yet?
No.
We've done some rubber on them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's hard to. They don't. They're not playing fair yet. So, information, parts, so on and so forth. The body shops have a hard time getting parts, and then aftermarket repairs. It's you have to know somebody.
So look, we're not going to give you an awful lot of answers today and explain to you exactly what you need to do, but I think it is such an important dialogue to have about what happens when the kind of policies that are going to exist in California will move themselves eastward. It always happens. And the push for electric vehicles comes on. What's the business going to look like then? I know, believe you me, this team here has a lot of great things to say. Carolyn, I want to start with you. We can't ignore what's going on with autonomy and the speed at which autonomy is coming at us. So if you add electric vehicles and autonomous cars, it's really going to change more of the dynamic than I think we know.
Yeah, it was really cool getting to think through what we wanted to talk about today, because obviously, folks are really preoccupied with how they're going to make money on electric cars, understanding that, they take a lot longer to break. And when they do break, what are you going to need to know what to do when they do need something? So it's a big shift for our service mix for sure. One of the important things to remember is that the different rules and regulations you mentioned in Europe are actually prohibiting ICE completely. What California's mandate is suggesting is only new vehicles would be electric or non-ICE. And so we're not saying that there aren't going to be traditional vehicles to work on or hybrids or whatever. So it definitely will be a transition for the industry. It won't just be an overnight thing. But that being said, when we really look at what's going to be impacting our business 15 years from now, I would argue that it's the other technology on the car that we're going to need to get ramped up on, and it's not necessarily the propulsion system. And of course, there's this synergy between electrics and fleets, because if you have a fleet, you have more flexibility about when the car needs to rest and charge versus when it's available for service, which has always been an issue for electric vehicles versus liquid fueled vehicles. So you can imagine a world where, okay, I'm a autonomous Lyft car, and now I'm running out of charge, and I just stop giving people rides, and I park and I charge, and a different Lyft car comes out and does its thing on the road. So looking at electrics in that context, they're really almost a drag along, a drafting behind some of the connected trends that we see, certainly around ADAS. And those are the things that are going to have a tremendous service opportunity. So everybody on this panel also participates in ASCCA's Connected Cars Committee. As you know, you've been kind enough to invite us to participate on previous podcasts about what's going on in Connected. And I mean, frankly, I think that that's our opportunity to really get tooled up and understand those are the repairs that are going to be highly valued, and certainly maybe not frequent, but certainly going to be demanding of service professionals, and a great opportunity for us to continue to make money.
Thank you for that. Hey, gang, I want to continue to talk about Carolyn's discussion here, but I failed to give a high five to my sponsors at the beginning of the show. And if I didn't, I think one of the people on this thing would have just, reached through and said, "Are you kidding me? You forgot?" And I just wanted to jump into the topic so much. Hey, wow your customers, because Shopware wants you to do that, and keep your distance while we're trying to stay as safe as possible. And look at the innovative Shopware technology. They're going to help you move cars through safely and efficiently. We're talking completely digital workflows that allow customers to review, approve, and pay for the repairs all in one place, and that's what they call the 1, 2, 3 punch. Request a demo at getshopware.com, and your customers want you to do what you say you're going to do, and it should be the same with your marketing company. Shop Marketing Pros listens, cares, and responds quickly, and does what they say they'll do. On the web at shopmarketingpros.com. Hey, listen, if it wasn't for our sponsors, we wouldn't have this show. So thank you. By the way, thanks, Carolyn, for your continued support.
It's our pleasure to sponsor, and we love what you're doing for the industry. It's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good stuff that she talked about. Anybody want to tag on to that?
So, just building on what Carolyn said, right? So just a little more clarity on the 2035 mandate, right? It is definitely just new cars being sold. Cars won't, at this point anyway, nobody's saying banning cars in California. You'll be able to buy new cars from out of state. And in the next 15 years, we're going to see more and more electric vehicles and autonomous ADAS, so on and so forth, on the road as they become more penetrating into the market. So, it's not going to be like 2035, oh my God, all these electric cars are going to show up in our bays, right? We have an opportunity to learn, get trained, get tooled up, understand the service opportunities, because that's going to be the key here. What's the service opportunity on an EV, right? Cooling system that's never going to need to be serviced maybe once in its life for a with electric motor system. No oil, no all the stuff that it's just not going to be there. So that's going to be part of the key. Is those service opportunities that we have to recognize, get trained, learn the technology, be prepared, don't get left behind. I think we will see, in the next 50 years, 40 years, right after that the car count will drop, but the ARO is going to go way up. It would be more like in my opinion, more like the airline industry, where it's a modular replacement kind of thing. You remove, this particular assembly, send it out to get fixed, similar to a starter motor now, right? But just a bigger, more electronic type assembly.
Gang, a few years ago, Craig Van Vattenberg was on with me, and he said, if for the internal combustion engine, you're probably going to need, and I don't remember the exact stat, I should have looked it up, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 customers per bay to run a really good shop as far as, the depth of your customer base. And he says, when we get to where we're going to get with autonomy, with electric vehicles, you're going to need about 10,000. And when he said that to me a few years ago, I really thought that, it was an incredible vision of his, but I think it's true, because you just said, Dave, the ARO is going to be big, but there's not going to be as many repairs. Carolyn, and I'd love you to chime in, about hybrid. I think, were you the original hybrid shop in the entire country?
Well, we were the first to sort of hang our shingle and say hybrid specialists, which was, a big leap at the time, because, we didn't even know if that car was going to break. Fortunately, it does. It just takes longer to break. But our car count has gone down more recently as the cars have gotten older. So we just have larger tickets. We're doing more work on the cars. But in the past, we would do about 500 to 600 cars a month, and we have a 5-bay shop. So it's easy to say, easy math would put that at 60,000 cars a year, and divide that by 5, you're a little over 10,000 cars per bay. Now, that's some of that's repeat.
Sure.
Some of that's a taxi coming in 4 times for a headlight bulb. So it's not exactly, but if you're talking just strictly car count, I don't think that's far off. The dynamic with cars is they get lower maintenance, which is what we're talking about with electrics, right? Is that they don't need very much. They still need to be checked on a regular basis. We're currently doing storage and charging for a small fleet of these like pilot autonomous vehicles. It's called Pony AI. So they park cars here overnight, and we're regularly checking to make sure the tires are okay and the lights are working and all that stuff. And we do that every single day before the car leaves in the morning. But if you just look at like hybrid service, okay, maybe it comes in every 6 months, and you're doing a maintenance and a maintenance and a maintenance, and what that maintenance includes, of course, is kind of up to us depending on what we think we can appropriately charge the customer. If we look at electric, same thing, right? It's going to need very, very little, even less, because it doesn't include an oil change. And then all of a sudden, bang, one day you have a hybrid battery, or you have a broken windshield that's going to need, a sensor calibration or whatever the case may be. And then you're back to sort of the regular monotony of not very much needed. So it's kind of like, how do you survive the dry times, right? So how do you survive through the times when the car is not needing much to be there at that time that the car needs a lot? And certainly that's worked for us, right? So like if you looked at the total ownership cost for a Prius or something like that in our business, I could go do I don't have that offhand, but sort of what would that average ticket look like, and how would that average ticket compare to sort of the average ticket of a Corolla or a different kind of car that you might have in your shop? Now, granted, we're working on Japanese cars instead of like Europeans, but there's certainly a way to do it. You just have to kind of rebalance what your expectations are, and then you need to figure out your shop efficiency to be able to make sure that you're not expecting to make all that money every time the car comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the big things, moving forward is, just getting yourself in a position to make changes. We hear stories about, shops that still handwrite work orders and, things like that. And, there's very few of those. They're still hanging on. The changes that we're going to need to make moving forward, we still don't know what they're all going to be, but we have to be ready to do it. And I think that, the changes are going to have to come a little quicker. Like I said, a lot of shops have gone to the digital inspection, and we're still, some do, some don't. It's been 5-6 years now, but these are changes that we're going to have to make. And we got to be set up and paying attention to what's going on. You got to be plugged in. It's going to be super important that we keep the channels open for parts, for information, for tooling. That's one of the amazing things ASECA does is, we're on the forefront of that. We're fighting for that. And it's going to be even more important, moving forward. Because, like Dave said, with Tesla, they don't play nice. We don't have a lot of information. We don't have access to parts and tools and things like that. Excuse me. So, we've got to keep those channels open. And probably the biggest thing is we really don't know where this is going. Sure, there's a mandate out there, but is that going to change, when the next guy comes along, and it's going to change somehow before, 2035. We just don't know how. So,
the point with Tesla being, like Carolyn said, I did some rubber, and with Rivian coming on board and so many other electric car platforms, and if they follow the model of Tesla, and we don't have ASECA and associations in general and a united industry, I think I'm not talking doom or gloom, because it goes back to the 80s when fuel injection came out. That'll never last. It's going to last, and we need to stay on the forefront of it, John, to your point.
Yeah.
Rory, in the mountains, you see many electrics out there?
Actually, we do. Actually, because there's a lot of commuters. I mean, driving into LA every day, and so we actually do have quite a few of them up here. What I was just going to cover is education. Both educating our staff as far as not only the technicians but the service writers. Service writers are going to have to be re-educated on what they sell. The staff is going to have a commitment to constant education. And I think we're really missing the boat out there in a lot of schools, especially just even getting the kids interested in the high school level, because our local high school level has a pretty good automotive program still that we're thankful for. But you go in there and they're messing with carburetors. I mean, and you go, how are they going to attract these kids that a lot of them are into computers and they would be really interested in electric cars and the technologies, but they're not being introduced to it. So I think we really need to get into those high schools and junior colleges and start getting these kids that are going into different aspects of computer technology, but we're losing them and we're not getting them into our industry because they're not being introduced to it. And I just actually had a kid, he wanted just to come into the shop and see what the industry was about. He's still thinking about what he's going to go into, but he was just blown away when we started working with the Picoscope together and some of the scan tools. And he was like, I didn't even know this existed. And we need to just get into the schools and get them interested in this to bring them into our industry, because we're losing the really smart, sharp kids to other industries.
Yeah. And on, on that point, I have a couple of younger kids that came from, one is actually going to our community college and another one, he's 26, 27. And our focus with them and their training is the electrical, the electronics and things like that. It's, when he's working at the shop, they're working on cars, but I told him you see training out there for any of, the ADAS and, anything electronics, anything electrical, the stuff that's coming down the road, that's the classroom that you need to be sitting in, because yes, that absolutely is, the way it's going. Our local community college, they have a full-on machine shop, and they're teaching how to, do valves and, replace pistons and all that. And now we've got the mandate for, none of that in 2035. So these kids are going to come up, hey, I can rebuild an engine. And they're like, well, this is an electric engine. And, oh, yeah, I don't know how to do that. So,
you're going to have to learn how to wind motors, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To get a 3D printer to build the parts for it. It's interesting. On the training front, I've people often ask, like, what do you get your training and stuff like that? And it's a long-winded answer. Certainly, I think, Carm, you probably have more perspective on resources and who's out there right now providing training for young folks and how to bring people into the industry. So it would be awesome for you to sort of remind everybody what resources are kind of top of mind for folks who are looking to figure this stuff out, either locally or just for their own business. But one of the easy things that you can do if you want to get into this is to buy a Gen 2 Prius, a Prius from 2004 to 2009. It's got all the same stuff that an electric car is going to have. And it's cheap. You can get they're all like 200,000 miles now. The engine's burning a quart of oil like every time it starts. And who cares? Because that's not the part of the car that you're terribly interested in. You're interested in the battery, you're interested in the inverter, you're interested in the motor. You can get into your scan tools. You can learn a ton about that car. And if you train one of your junior techs to R&R that battery, or to take the cover off that inverter and do tests, like, you can do that. It's a trainer, basically. It's like a $500 trainer for your staff. And like, if you can do that, you can work on any electric car. Now, granted, you got to have the factory scan tool, you got to have the service information, but the electromagnetism on the Prius is the exact same electromagnetism on the Nissan Leaf, on the Tesla. It's the computer stuff that makes the Tesla more complicated. And guess what? That's not the powertrain. That's the ADAS. That's all the other stuff that we have to deal with every single car on the road. So for folks who are looking to just sort of, initially get in there and get some exposure and demystify, buy yourself a Gen 2 Prius and start tearing it apart.
What a hell of an idea.
The gem of the day, right?
Yeah, it is. That's the idea of the day. And Bill Connor, as we as an industry have to inspire our young people. Many in our industry have a negative outlook on the industry. That's not painting a true picture. Thanks for that, Bill. Wow, what a great takeaway. I think I'm going to go buy a Prius just so that I have one. I mean, what the hell, right?
Just buy
Wow.
a case of oil and occasionally fill it with gas.
I live on the side of a hill, steep hill. Will it go up it?
Yeah, of course. Interesting tidbit is that it doesn't have a reverse gear, so it can only go in reverse with electric power, which I have actually gotten in trouble in San Francisco, getting stuck on a couple of hills, trying to go backwards, trying to parallel park.
So, wait a minute. You have to think to drive it?
Yeah, but just keep going. Yeah, up the hill.
Do a lot of forward driving.
Just don't go backwards up the hill. You'll be fine.
Hey, let me drag Greg Buckley in on this thing. He says, "How are we to judge the consumer's thirst to spend dollars on a 5 to 10-year-old vehicle when their needs for transportation can be completed by others? Uber, Grubhub, Amazon. I feel that the metric of miles driven per capita is something to keep our eye on." In his humblest opinion, your opinion.
As always, Mr. Buckley is very smart. It's a little off topic, but we had talked about that some in the past with, the why own a car kind of thing, right? And, I think that's I know, like I said, talked about it. I think it's a different conversation for another day on how to combat that. But it's definitely going to be a situation of, if you can have an autonomous electric car show up at your doorstep by just pushing a button on your phone, why own a car? So, but there's been some studies showing that people they do want to own cars. We'll see, right? So, one of the questions you had asked, Carmen, if I jump ahead, is about the legislative process and things like that at this point, because now
can we hold on that, Dave?
You bet,
let's hold on that. I want to come right back to you. I think it's a great place to go. I want to give another high five out to our sponsors. Contactless service is key to keeping your bays full while remaining 6 feet apart, and Shopware's completely digital workflow will wow your customers and keep profits up. Tara from Topol Service Center commented recently, "Hey, thank God for this amazing cloud-based software during this difficult time. She can't imagine life without it." Thank you, Carolyn. And hashtag Team Shopware. Book a demo at getshopware.com. And have you realized that your marketing looks exactly the same as the shop down the road? Well, your shop is different, and it deserves marketing that is as unique as your shop is. Let Shop Marketing Pros show your community how different you are. Shopmarketingpros.com. Thanks for waiting on that, Dave. Let's go back to that.
So, right now this mandate is just that. It's a, executive order from the governor. And so, there has been little reaction other than, oh my God, kind of stuff right now. So back, mid 90s, we had a mandate to have a certain number of vehicles for sale in California that were zero emission. It bred the Saturn EV1, which was kind of a disaster. We had a few propane powered vehicles. Toyota had one, that was pretty popular in California for a little while. And it just turned out that, the buying public said, we're not buying those, right? So they spoke with their wallets, and the mandate kind of went away. I know I'm not saying that's going to happen this time, right? Because I think the significant difference this time is the legislative bodies in California are behind it. Many people, or maybe even the majority of people in California would be behind it. And the most important thing is the manufacturers are behind it. Every manufacturer is strongly pushing EVs. Toyota, there was a story in the paper today surrounding Volkswagen and how they're, re-energizing their, no pun intended, re-energizing their EV technology. They've basically said at some point in the future, I don't know, it was 2025, 2030, something like that. And they are the largest manufacturer in the world, right? Yep. Volkswagen is every vehicle they produce will be EV. So, clearly the manufacturers are on board and behind it. And, here, the largest market in the country says every car you're going to sell from 2035 on is EV. They're recouping their investment pretty quick in that case. So they're behind it. So, it's something in this nature will happen.
15 years, guys, ladies, 15 years. And again, I don't think our business model is going to change drastically, but it kind of reminds me of why should everyone who works in our industry go to ADAS training, even if you're not going to be a calibration expert. You have to pay attention to this. Not that I believe, Carolyn, help me if I'm right or wrong, that there's a lot of education that you have to have on fixing an EV. Is there just as much as going to school to learn how to do an ICE vehicle? Yeah,
obviously you need to learn how the systems work. There's a whole nother layer of systems on top of an electric vehicle that don't exist in an internally combusted vehicle. So, we're accustomed to 12 volt or maybe, 42 volt systems that have a battery, maybe lead acid, maybe nickel metal hydride, but a battery and a starter and an alternator. And then there's some electronics that are handling those systems. Essentially it's the same concepts with the motor that's moving the wheels and the battery that's buried somewhere on the car with more storage. But you're talking about higher voltage. The power electronics are not the same. And certainly the way the car brakes and how you diagnose it is something that you have to kind of, you have to like relearn how to diagnose the car. It's very easy. I like to say that when you're working on at least hybrids, I mean, I think it's true for EVs too, but in a lot of ways, EVs are simpler because you don't have the variable of the internally combusted portion. And okay, is the problem in the engine or is the problem in the hybrid system or the electric system? But I like to say it's great what you know. The problem isn't what you know, it's what you don't know. And when you get into that section of the car, it's really easy to misdiagnose. Like, for example, when the Prius has a misfire, because it has the planetary gear set directly connected to the crankshaft, and this is just, gears that essentially then move a chain that then move the wheels, that planetary will just bang around on the flywheel. It'll just bang and bang and bang. And so what you end up hearing when the car has a misfire is this horrible racket in the transmission. So you're thinking, oh, the car's got a bad transmission. Well, no, it's got water in one of the spark plug tubes. Perfect example of like how you can run astray if you don't realize how to diagnose the car. So anyway, I definitely think that training's super important. There's been folks training on hybrids, obviously, for 2 decades now. So there's some really smart folks out there that you can get training from. And again, I think hybrids are a great stepping stone, not only technically, but in terms of mechanical training to understand what we need to be able to figure out and be prepared for electric. Ultimately what we're talking about are factory tools, factory service information, really being able to have a full picture of the car, because when we talk OBD2 and traditional stuff, we were looking at emissions and stuff that was governing the engine control system. And I think that's actually an interesting part of this discussion, Dave, as you were mentioning the EV mandate at the end of the 90s. That was motivated by traditional emissions, right? That was motivated by California's air quality. And now we're not dealing with, the smog in LA. Now we're dealing with the fires burning in LA and the fact that we have a climate change problem, which is like, not the traditional emissions, but the carbon dioxide. And so getting off of fossil fuels in general, not just for the tailpipe emissions that we are traditionally concerned about is what's motivating this move. And that's obviously not just affecting California, it's affecting the entire world. So we see the automakers really starting to participate. Another comment I wanted to make earlier to Greg's point about where are our customers going to be and who are our customers in the future. Certainly there's some worry that cars are going to stay at the dealership. Rivian comes out with a car, and like Tesla, they decide to have, Rivian dealerships in various regions. The reality is that it's very expensive to create that infrastructure. Like all these Ford dealers and all of these Toyota dealers and all this network exists because those automakers have been in the US market for a really, really long time. And in a lot of ways, they're actually regulated to have dealerships. Whereas you look at progressive OEs that are coming into this space, many of whom are making electric cars, it's not necessarily in their best interest to set up a dealer network. And as we know, like dealers don't necessarily help OEs in the first place because oftentimes it's not a terribly pleasant experience for a customer to have to buy a car from the dealership. So if they can essentially sell the cars, make the cars and sell the cars, and the aftermarket provides the service for those vehicles, I think everyone wins. So I actually think that the aftermarket is in a better strategic position than dealerships out into the future. The question then is, how does the aftermarket meet these fleets? How do we meet the needs of those fleets? And certainly that's something that I'm super passionate about, providing a shop network in the form of a shop management system and trying to put together some of those partnerships. But that's something that we will obviously need to be thinking about on top of being able to fix the cars, is in how do we make those business relationships with those partners that are essentially going to be brokering those repairs. And certainly I think that's another one of these things like, what's the car ownership component? How is the car going to get itself to your shop? Whether it's technology or the partnership that dictates it.
Well, since nobody wants to pick up on that, one of the thoughts that I had, Carolyn, that if you were not, if you wanted to prepare for the electric future and you don't have your hybrid shingle up, shame on you. Because to me, that's the stepping stone. Yes?
I mean, people ask me like, "Oh, aren't you going to go get into all electrics now?" And I say, "Okay, well, right now we work on basically one car, Prius, and they don't break very much. So obviously, just focusing on that one car and being very good at that one car and keeping, having the factory tools, having all the advanced equipment, keeping that inventory to just really slay that one line is how we make money. Why would I then go and service the car that each automaker has sold the least number of, that requires the factory tool for sure, and needs no service whatsoever, even worse than the Toyota Prius? Like that's a bloodbath, right? It's just way too early to be focused on the i3s and the IQs and the Audi electrics, all these cars that are really early. Just it's like the Nissan Leaf 2012. I mean, that car barely needs. I mean, the battery goes bad, but it's like when is there enough of a compelling service need to make it worth our time to tool up and get to know those cars? And that's always been our benefit, right? Is that we don't actually have to know everything before the car. When the car rolls off the line, we can react as the car starts to break and have needs in the aftermarket. There's a lot of trainers who have tried to invent ways that hybrids are going to fail, and how you need to buy this tool or be worried about this or whatever, and none of it was true. So we'll be able to sit back and relax and see what we actually can do for those cars into the future. But right now we have all the transitional technology happening just in terms of the vehicle management for ADAS, for autonomy. And that, I think, is our transitional focus right now. So that again, it's a kind of where all these different trends are sort of converging at the same time.
Let me change what I said earlier to, instead of put up your hybrid shingle, put up your Prius shingle. Does that make more sense?
Right. Well, certainly, I'm a big advocate. I mean, I think if you've got Prius in your area, there is no reason that you shouldn't be trying to attract those cars. The Tech Stream is a very easy tool to purchase and to use. There's a lot of great information about those cars online, and the cars are in desperate need of aftermarket repair. They don't get very well served at the dealer, in my experience. So why not?
John, Dave, Rory, are you guys all doing Prius?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You have no choice. They're there. I mean, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and then not just Prius, right? So we work on the gamut, right? All the domestic lines, Asian lines, and then Volkswagen and Audi. The other European lines, barrier to entry is really big. I have lots of neighbors that are experts, so we just don't swim in that pool, right? So, but Carolyn alludes to the changes that are coming and have come, right? And if we look back in history, right, disc brakes, electronic ignition, electronic fuel injection, onboard computer systems, all of these things were going to destroy the aftermarket. We were never going to be able to fix these cars ever again. Well, guess what? We're still fixing them. We do a better job than the dealer in most cases, right? Because all of these things don't break when the car is new and under warranty. We see them 5-10 years later when they start to break, right? So we have that advantage of we have that history and that knowledge in our back pocket. So Carolyn's exactly right. This isn't, again, right, this isn't going to be a switch in 2035 where all of a sudden every car on the road is going to be an EV, or even hydrogen, right? I mean, it's not a mandate for EV, it's a mandate for no internal combustion. So there's one we haven't really mentioned is the hydrogen vehicles. And there's a gas station next door that's got a hydrogen fueling station, and I see they're all coming from the dealer to get refueled because I don't think they're really selling a ton of them yet. But the Mirai, the Honda's, whatever Honda's version is, I saw Hyundai there. So Hyundai's got a fuel cell vehicle. So between EVs and fuel cells, right? I think the fuel cell vehicle is going to be a big market because the infrastructure is growing. They have more things on them that will have service opportunities, and as popular as we kind of look at the electric vehicle, the hybrid, alternative vehicles in our areas, kind of through the lens of our area. You know, I mean, it's a number of years ago, but you know, we've had the little two-seater cars running around here for years and years and years. And we were in New Orleans for you know, some years back, and there's, you know, it's one of these sitting on the side of the road. It was just parked, and it was a crowd was gathering. It's like, what is this? You know, it's like, we've had these cars for years, right? I went to a training for hybrids, and it was, don't touch the orange wire. And it's like, we've been fixing these cars for 10 years. So, you know, there's a huge part of the country that don't see these cars yet, right? Because of a variety of reasons. So, you know, we're going to be the first to see them. We always see them. We'll have the highest density of them. So, you know, the more metropolitan areas are the ones that have to be prepared. And, you know, and the learning curve will happen. I mean, we'll have to do it to survive.
Yeah, I think back to my first training on, you know, the hybrids, and you, just like Dave said, you know, if you lean on the car the wrong way, you're going to get electrocuted if you don't have the right shoes and the mat and this and that. And fortunately, I was just dumb enough to screw it, I'm going to work on it anyway, and I survived and, you know, figured it out. You know, and, you know, we just the other day we had a discussion about changing a fuse in a I forget what kind of a vehicle it was, and you know, the advisor's like, well, God, you got to do this and that, and the tech's like, no, you just do this, it's done, you know. But the advisor was worried about, you know, safety and, you know, all of that, and so I think, you know, what's coming down the pike is going to be the same way. You know, we like ADAS, the training we've gotten on ADAS, and it's changed. You know, we're on the Connected Cars Committee, and we've been looking at it for 2 years, and a lot has changed in that 2 years. You know, it's, you know, you got to buy $100,000 worth of stuff, and then, oh yeah, Toyota says you can print out their targets on a piece of paper and draw a chalk line, and I could be wrong. I can't remember if it's Toyota, but, you know, it's come to that, you know. And yes, moving forward, you know, you just have to keep your eyes open, looking forward, you know, figure out what's coming. And like Dave says, you know, we're going to see the cars on the road before we're ever going to work on them. And so we have that ability to, you know, go to classes, you know, find the information. And by the time we start working on them, we're going to have guys that have already stared at them. You know, every time a new car comes in that we've never seen, the whole shop goes out there, they pop the hood, they're digging around, and they get online, and, you know, what's this? And so, you know, that's the way that the shops are going to have to, you know, work on the new stuff, is just pay attention.
Thanks for that, John. Let me get right back to you all. Hey, now more than ever, you're focused on bringing cars through your bays safely and efficiently. Shopware's shop management system offers a completely contactless workflow. That's what you want. Your customers can review, approve, and even pay 1, 2, 3 for the repairs right from their smartphone. Request a demo at getshopware.com. Tell them Carm sent you. Are you tired of your cookie cutter website? Is it bringing you new clients? Well, let our friends at Shop Marketing Pros create a website that is as unique as your shop. Catch them on the web at shopmarketingpros.com. Hey, we've had some really interesting comments. Greg says, Carolyn, I agree 100% that we as an independent network will be the key to OE repair side. And you know, what day is Tesla going to just knock and say, I don't know why we left you guys out, but, you know, come on in. Let's do something. I know there's some maverick guys out there that are doing an awful lot. Seth Thorson comes to mind. Greg also says, You're all getting me amped up, pun intended. Time to update my business plan. Go buy a Prius. Love that. That, to me, that's the biggest takeaway. California, I think, is the state noted that has the most classic cars. You know, I mean, God, raceway, hot rod heaven. They're never going to go away. Am I right?
No,
they're not.
Not a chance.
Especially when I see, you know, $1 million cars roll across the block at the auctions, right? I'm waiting for my 71 Chevelle to be worth $1 million.
So I guess what you're saying is we're not afraid. Bring it on. California mandate 2035. We know it's going to stretch across the country, but to Carolyn's point earlier, or I think it was Carolyn who said everybody's investing billions in their EV program. And if Volkswagen, the largest, who said that? I think it was you, Dave.
Yeah.
And not too many people really know that Volkswagen's the largest.
They're the largest car company in the world, right? Everybody thinks Toyota or Honda.
No. Yeah, and amazing how we used to carry. We were dominant here. The domestic three were dominant. Remember? Imagine that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that I think we're going to see some profound changes. The reason we're doing this show is just to push the thinking of our traditionalists that are out there. And think of the average age of the shop owner out there, 55 or older. I think it may be 57 now. What? Oh God, I got 5, 6, maybe years. Just go. I'm going to sell. I'm going to retire. I'm going to liquidate. I don't know, but this doesn't bother me. There's so much excitement going on in our industry. So many young people joining it. There's so much. I've never felt the vibe of an improved aftermarket since I started 5 years ago doing this, and it's amazing how much people are responding to this, which is the reason I wanted to have this discussion, to keep the future in mind, to keep the vision and the planning in mind, and to let folks listen to, shop owners like you guys, and especially in California, progressive, smart, say, what's the big deal? We're going to be there. Just don't go under a rock and fall asleep.
Right. You make an interesting point, Carm, with what you said, right? Oh, I'm 55, I'm 60 years old. I got 5 or 10 more years in this industry, then I'm going to get out. Well, what are you going to have in 10 years, right? If what does get out mean? Does it mean you lock the door and walk away, or does it mean you have zero value in a shop that is so far behind the times that you're still working on carburetors, right? You don't even know what fuel injection is. You're writing ROs by hand. So where are we as shop owners on this learning curve, on this scale, that in 10 years or 15 years, are our techs trained? Do we have a service advisor or advisors that are up to speed, that know how to talk to people that own these cars, that are early adopters in many cases? Do we have the proper tooling and information systems, so when I hang the for sale sign, somebody says, yeah, I want to buy that shop, right? Or, well, here's $50, Dave, your shop's worthless, get out, right? So the attitude of 5 or 10 years, I'm retiring, I'm not going to worry about it, is very short-sighted.
Pay attention, get into the deep end of the pool. Hey, we can go on for hours and hours. We had so many talking points. I'm not sure we covered them all, but I thought this discussion was a marvelous piece for the industry to hear over and over again. We sure didn't fix anything. We didn't put a key in something and says this is the way it needs to be, but we had a wonderful dialogue. I want to ask each of you to give us a final thought. Rory, I'll start with you. John, then Dave, then Carolyn. Okay, Rory?
Well, what I've experienced is the consumer wants us to do this. They are so pleased when they come into our shop and say we will work on it, because they've been several places that said they will not work on it. They go, you mean I don't have to go to the dealer? They're so thrilled that secondary becomes when it's going to be done, or the diagnostic fees. They know that they're going to have to pay for diagnostics because they look under the hood and they don't even know what most of the parts do. They know that they have a very complex vehicle that needs, skilled, trained technicians to work on. So it seems like it's almost easier to deal with because their mindset's already, they're just thankful that an independent shop will work on it and they don't have to go to the dealer. So it's been a real great thing for our business to step up to plate and start working on them. And yeah, you would think because we're in a rural area that we don't see a lot of them, but it's absolutely the opposite of that because of the commuters.
Great point, Rory. Customers want you to do this for them. Rory Balmer, Twin Peaks Auto Service, Twin Peaks, California, Vice President of ASCCA. John Eppstein, John's Automotive, San Diego, California, current President of ASCCA. John?
Yeah, I think that the mandate going out is kind of opening our eyes. I think the manufacturers are already there. They're working on this. is it going to be 2035 before, some of the manufacturers already are all electric? I don't think so. I think, they're going to hit that mark, well before that. So it's kind of like a warning shot, to the people that are working in this industry of, hey, I know it's 15 years down the road, but I've been in this business for 30 years, and the last 15 years sure did go by quickly. So I can just imagine how quick the next 15 years, change is going to come. It's going to come quick. You got to be ready to just do something different. At the end of the day, we got to look outside the box and just set yourself up, for success. And can we tell you what that looks like today? Absolutely not. There's so much change coming, but you just got to be ready to, keep your eyes open. One last thing, the vehicle ownership may completely change. There may not be, we may not own cars anymore for the most part. It might be, large companies. So you're going to have to be able to work with large companies. You're going to have to be able to identify, what those companies are, so you can approach them and say, oh, hey, by the way, I work on those, I can help you, and then, show your value. So these are just some of the things that, now we're marketing to, sure, we have some fleet stuff, but most of us market to individuals. I think that's going to change coming.
Thank you, John. I heard a great story, everyone. It came out of Seattle. It was probably 2 years ago, where a shop owner bought a huge piece of property near his place, and he built a parking garage, a multi-level. And the reason was that his vision of the future was that all those people that own that fleet of vehicles, all those autonomous cars, they were going to park at his place, and his garage was right next door. And he said, you can park your fleet here, but I'll work on them.
Yeah.
Cool idea. Idea. Dave Kusa, Auto Trend Diagnostics, Campbell, California, past president, board member of ASDCA. Dave, your final thoughts.
I love the garage. The parking garage. That's fantastic. So,
yeah.
So one of my favorite sayings is adapt or become obsolete. So, we just have to keep adapting. I said it earlier, we've done it before. We'll do it again. We'll continue to do it. If we think that the latest technologies that we're hearing about are going to be the final technologies, we're kidding ourselves, right? There's always going to be something new. Big giant brains are working on these things, on how to make vehicles better overall. So, we're going to have to keep adapting. And then I'm going to do some shameless pitching, right? So we have our ASCCA team weekend coming up November 21st, 22nd. So there's going to be some great information. It's all virtual. So, ASCCA.com is where you find the info and register. The PAVE conference that we are part of, ASCCA is part of in January. And then we are also working on a training conference coming in May. So, we were talking about training earlier. Now, is there going to be EV training? Probably not. There's just not a much EV training out there. Is more focused on shop owners, but there's gonna be technical training too. So here's an opportunity at these upcoming events for shop owners to learn what's going on, specifically in California, for as far as the legislature and the Bureau of Automotive Repair, and then also training at the PAVE conference and our ASCCA conference in May. So anybody that ASCCA.com, find it, sign up, join us, be there for part of Team Weekend, all Team Weekend. Carm, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you being here. You froze there for a minute. I was all worried you had this fabulous ending going on, and all of a sudden you froze for a second.
Is that why everybody was smiling at me?
Well, thank you. You just brought up PAVE, and I'm going to be involved in that, and we're just kind of learning what's going on with that. And final words from Carolyn Coquillette, CEO, Luscious Garage and Shopware, San Fran, and Secretary of ASCCA. Carolyn?
I think the reason why you wanted to put this on, Carm, was because of the sort of knee-jerk response to the news, potentially, from industry, which is like, oh, expletive, here comes the next thing that I've got to brace myself for. All electrics mandated by 2035. And I saw Craig O'Neill's comment, which is, what happens in California ends up, affecting the whole country. And so then everyone's thinking, oh dear, what am I going to have to do? And when we realize that these types of trends aren't actually being motivated by California anymore, there was actually some when we were kind of preparing for this event, we were reading up on sort of the commentary around Gavin's announcement, and a lot of people were sort of like, so what? You know, this is already going to happen, and he's just basically rubber stamping it so he can get some, you know, some political attaboys on the climate change side. And so this is going to happen, and California, it doesn't matter what California does, we're all going to go there. It's true of all the technology on the car. And what we realize is that that's actually a global movement. You know, the automakers are making cars globally, not just for California, not even just for the United States, right? And so all of these trends are affecting the entire planet. And then, you know, from our industry's perspective, it's like, okay, well, what do we do? Like, how do I possibly be ready? All you have to do is get engaged with that change, right? The power of community. If you're interacting with the rest of aftermarket will be responding to these trends and will be gearing up for it. It's just another reason to get involved with your regional or local associations, right? So again, power of community. Join ASCCA, join ASA, join whatever your local shop owners group is, so that you can stay in touch with all the stuff that is going on and being able to plug into the training, find the techs coming out of school. How can we support our staff members? How can we plug into those potentially new big fleets that are going to be bringing us cars, et cetera? Certainly, Auto Care Association has been super focused on the data access side. That's going to be critical for us. We need to be prepared. We need to be certified. We need to have all of our kind of professional ducks in a row to be able to say, yes, we can fix these cars safely and reliably. So all of those things. And then last but not least, obviously staying informed with shows like Town Hall Academy and Remarkable Results. I think, Carm, you're putting this on as case in point of how we stay in touch, and it's certainly an honor to help participate.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Hey, everyone. I think we accomplished what we wanted to, and thank you for being here. Hell of a leadership group out of ASCCA and all my friends out there in California. And if I come to any of your cities, I know I have a place to visit when we can fly again, right? Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thanks, Carm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.